back to Website and TV. I'm Gemma Houghton. Today I'm joined by Nicole Cow, who's a senior content writer at TrekkSoft, a booking platform and solution for the tour operators. And we're going to be talking today about content marketing in the travel industry. Hi Nicole, thanks for being here.
Hiya, thanks for having me.
So, I know that at TrekkSoft you have a very content marketing driven approach.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
I think one thing we noticed when it came to content for tour and activity operators was that there wasn't a lot, and there wasn't a lot of relevant and just good quality content. So it's something we decided we'd do something about, and it's become like the core of our entire kind of marketing strategy as well. So yeah, that is kind of how it happened, and it's been a interesting 2 years working and writing content and going from, just talking about travel trends to talking about really industry-specific kind of content. Yeah.
And what do you think are the fundamentals to consider when you kind of embarking on this kind of approach and when you're trying to determine, like you say, exactly what content to create?
So I think for us, the trickiest part was to find out who our audience was. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the tour and activity sector, there are tons of different sorts of operators. So they're really the small, startup kinds, and then the really big, with 50 offices around the world kind. And we want to speak to everyone. That was the goal, to speak to everybody. And so really thinking about, before creating a piece of content, thinking about, who the audience was and what the goal of that piece of content was. That is kind of, I think, how we approach writing it, and hopefully it translates. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
And obviously when you are targeting a global audience, you're targeting different markets in particular. Mm-hmm. There are different factors and kind of things to consider when you're creating content for different markets. So what are those extra factors and challenges, and how do you deal with those?
So a bit about how we do our content and translate them. So what happens is the English team produces the content first, and we give it some time to run to see which content kind of performs better. Mm-hmm. And then our international, regional teams will kind of pick and choose which, first of all, suits their market, and also which is just relevant for them and which is also performing well. And then we've also noticed across with different countries and different languages, some of it. So like, for example, our Italian market, they really appreciate it when we distribute it properly. Same with the Spanish market. So sometimes it's not just about the content, but it's also how you distribute it and where and to who.
So it's very important really to tailor not just the content, but the whole strategy, your whole digital strategy for each market.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I think we have such an international team, and that's why they're so important.
And other teams, do you work with people based in the countries? Do you work with experts from those markets? How do you make sure that you're getting the right local understanding?
So we get, for example, our Italian market. So we have a regional office in Milan, mm-hmm. and we also have our main marketer based in Interlaken with us. Mm-hmm. So she's kind of overseeing everything and also communicating with the markets in Milan, and she travels a lot. So she meets a lot of operators and destination companies, and she speaks to them. So she knows what they want and what they need. And so that she's kind of like our connector, I guess, to the market. And then obviously with different countries, like everyone kind of shares their knowledge and talks about what works for them, and we try to implement different ideas across different countries to see what works. And then when something works, you replicate it, and hopefully it works better.
Yeah, absolutely, and take ideas from different teams and make sure you're benefiting from that.
Yeah, for sure.
And like you say, it's also really important not to just focus on the digital aspect, but to be out there meeting people to understand what they want, to then be able to put that into practice. I
think that was something that was hard for us when we first started creating content for tour operators, because it's a very offline industry. I know it's a bit ironic because we're a tech company trying to bring people online, mm-hmm. but it's because it's such an offline industry that it's hard to also figure out what kind of content they want to read. A huge part was joining Facebook groups, reading like comments on TripAdvisor or how people respond to comments, and that's where we find at least the voices of the people we're trying to reach.
Yeah, see what people are struggling with and make sure you can fill that gap.
Yeah.
And I guess travel, a lot of people think that travel is a great industry, to create content for, because there is so much to write about and there's so many, beautiful images and beautiful places and things. How do you kind of then find out the best things within that, and how do you make sure that you're not just adding to what's already there, because there's a lot of content out there already?
I know this is going to sound cheesy or repetitive, but I think it's being true to your brand and being true to your what you have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this amazing guy in Copenhagen. He does bike tours. I think he's Bike Mike or something. He's got like, I remember reading his About Me page, and it was just the longest thing I've ever read in my life, but it was so interesting, and it translated across in his entire website who he really was, and he's basically a no-nonsense, I'm going to give you, Copenhagen as it is, no frills kind of a bike tour. But also, he also had a bit of a quirky edge to it, so that was his twist. If you checked out his TripAdvisor and everything, everyone's like, this is an amazing tour, he's super original. And there was nothing fancy about it. He was just being true to his voice. And I think that really, it's probably a struggle for most companies, but if you can nail that, then you really stand a good chance of being, different from everyone else.
Yeah, and customers now more than ever want authenticity, and there's so much fake news out there from so many fake brands. I guess it's really important to be honest.
And I mean, as people become more sophisticated in their travel purchase decisions as well, more so brands need to be on top of that.
And then you talked about, obviously, this is, the content is driving the whole digital strategy, really, and you touched on the distribution methods in, say, Italy and Spain. Mm-hmm. Obviously, creating the content is that first step, and then you have to get it out there. And for an industry which you say isn't particularly online, how do you go about that? How did you develop a strategy to make sure that, it wouldn't just be there, but people would read it?
I think one of our biggest distribution channels, I would call it, is our newsletter. So, if people like what they read, or if they download an ebook and they want to learn more, we try to get their email addresses onto our newsletter list. And that's where I guess most people still check their emails, and they still read that's where we get most of our traffic, and that's where people also read our content from. But then other things we rank well in would be like travel trends content, and that just kind of grows organically. I guess people are just generally interested in that, so they'll just hit up Google for that. But for more specific content, we do rely on our newsletters and our social media channels as well.
And then how do you build that email database? Because I think it's true that, a lot of businesses would say that email still is a really important channel, but you've got to get that list, and you can't just go out and buy a list of names. So how do you develop a really, relevant list?
For us, what we did was we created really relevant downloadable content, and then we'll ask like, oh, are you interested in also a weekly newsletter? No, it's bi-weekly newsletter, and that's where we keep we stay on top of delivering relevant content. So everything that goes in the newsletter is things that have performed well, are either product specific or industry specific, or very educational, and that's what we can try to do consistently as well. Yeah.
And what do you think overall are the kind of biggest opportunities for travel brands at the moment in general? What are the key trends in the industry that are really worth taking advantage of?
I would say, I don't want to say get on the online wagon, but you have to be online, and mobile is definitely growing. So we've noticed that like 50% of our mobile bookings come through mobile, and that was interesting as well, because considering how so many operators are still offline, but if 50% of bookings are coming through mobile, they need to be online to be on mobile. So I think there's a huge opportunity there for tour operators, but there's also a huge opportunity for them to use technology and work with one another. They can either package activities from different operators to create like something really unique, or cross-sell. So I sell your stuff and you sell my stuff, and that way kind of everyone benefits. So that's a huge opportunity. I guess
partnerships are almost easier now with online, because you don't have to be in the shop next to each other, or it's quite easy to work with.
I think my favorite kind of use case, a bit of a business lingo, but my favorite kind of use case is in Fjord, Norway. So the whole region is kind of spread out, so they've got like mountains and rivers and everything, all the shops and offices, like physical stores, are very far spread out. But with our software, it brings everyone together. It's a no-brainer almost, because it makes it easy for you to not just speak to your partners and other local suppliers, but also it makes it life easier for your customer to find you and everyone else. So it's kind of a win for everybody, but they need to get online first.
hard to believe that people aren't online nowadays, but it sounds like there's still a way to go.
It's a lot better now, I think, from 2 years ago when I started with the company, but there's still a huge way to go. But at least we've made some headway, so like people kind of understand why they need to be online now. The next question is how and when and what.
Yeah.
So hopefully we answer those questions.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much for sharing your insights with us today. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. You're really nice.
Thanks.